Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for the invitation, and thank you to CBC Radio-Canada, to the Canada Community Foundations. Merci. Thank you to our co-hosts. I am Nadine Belliveau. I live in Baie-Sainte-Marie, Nova Scotia. I am a visual artist, and I'm also the president of the Acadienne Association of Nova Scotia Artists. And I'd like to talk to you about four things: the Association of Artists, the status of artists in 1867, then in 1967, and finally our recommendations on how to get involved in 2017. So the Acadienne Association of Artists is a nonprofit association, a provincial organization which supports artists who work in partnership with various groups, provincial groups, and they are involved in projects in the schools regionally and provincially. And our members come from all these sectors of the arts, professional and amateur artists. And we publish 4 newsletters per year. On our website, you find the list of artists who want to be involved in professional and amateur arts. We work with young artists. And through the support of the province, we have been involved in the Revue Acadienne, young artists, amateur artists who have done around the province. We've participated in Quaco and musical festivals. The artist program is involved in the resident artists, the promotion of the Grand Prix Society, and third-year students received 18 visual artists. Young Canada Works were also involved, and we've allowed young musical performers to make presentations in Halifax last year. But where are our artists, in fact? Where are our artists? Well, there are several regions with Francophone Acadians. Chatican, in the northeastern part of the province, it's very vibrant, and through various organizations, they have been able to support their artists. Known traditionally for their arts, they're not limited. For example, Nicole Leblanc just launched an album. Chatican has been very successful with the theater presentations, for example, and there is the Soirée chez Gelas presentation, and we can also talk about the work of Paul Galland, who is a musician and a developer with young artists. And we also find singers from Chatican, Ronald Bourgeois, a great musician and a community worker, and now he lives in Halifax. And we find fiddle players. And Clare, for example, between Digby and Yarmouth. And they are very proud of their artists in that area. And some of them teach arts at the university level. They are writers, they produce musical albums, and they have won prizes. Our members recognize the importance of working with our young musicians. For example, for several years, there has been an album developed with young musicians. And the Conseil des Arts Labés is involved in the gallery. They're involved in storytelling, in theater, and professional music groups such as Blue and Grand Dérangement, and many others. And they all express themselves with passion, based on their own experience. At the other end of the province, we find Il Madame and the artist Claudine Marchand, involved in theater arts, and she is from the Richmond area. And we also have artists in Argyle, and they have been very successful with the presentation of the musical La Voix de la Mer, written and directed by Yvette d'Entremont. And the Arts Council is vibrant, and we have a chorus in southwestern Nova Scotia under Father Maurice Leblanc. There are several visual artists participating in regional provincial exhibits such as Milda Curran, Simon Desron, and others. And elsewhere in the province, we find a group living in French in Pomquette. So Michel Denocourt, a sculptor and a community worker and a former founder of the association. And we also have artists in Sydney with 1,200 people speaking French. And they're involved in theater arts, visual arts, and that's just an example. We have the Annapolis Valley with 1,000 francophones, where we find artists and musicians, writers, such as Martin de Jacot, who is a professor at the university. We find journalists, writers, and community workers. In Truro, the community is small, but we've been very successful with theaters where the sea leads us. And Halifax has the largest concentration of francophones in Nova Scotia, almost 11,000 people coming from everywhere across the country and the world. And François Godin from Clare is a professional artist. He has a lot of experience in creating contemporary art. And from Clare also, Ryan Doucette is an actor, a comedian, and a mime. And his career is on fast beat. And he has appeared in films, The Disappeared and Copperhead. Our members are also friends who support us in our work in the arts sector. Robin Metcalf, for example, is a director of the St. Mary's University Art Gallery, and he supports our artists. The arts are very vibrant with artists such as Don Latremont, Diane Lamarck, and Diane Tutko. The community, the Francophone community on the South Coast, is promoting French culture. We have cultural activities which are very high quality. So it just gives you a taste of the great vitality of artists in Francophone Acadian areas in Nova Scotia. And to understand the status of our artists in 1867, we have to look back a bit at our history. And there were just 3 generations that separated us from the tragic deportation. And here we have a photo of my great-great-grandparents, and they're looking more at the practical aspects of life. And they were busy creating their home, creating their furniture, and they were taking care of their children. And they were preparing food, making bread, making butter, and they were making the tools that were needed to prepare food. And when Canada was created, Acadians were concerned with survival, and it was a long journey. And art was limited to the color of wool or pictures that came from grandparents. They were concerned with choosing colors. And they showed us also that we could celebrate. Work was dictated by the seasons. However, we knew how to forge ahead. We knew how to invent, how to manufacture, how to create, how to sculpt. And to say the least, the talent of our ancestors was fascinating, for example, in the area of construction. And that industry prospered along the Baie Sainte-Marie and in other areas of the province at that time. And 100 years later, in 1967, in Ottawa, there were official preparations for the celebration of the centennial. And that began in 1959. I was in high school at the time, and people were encouraged to participate at Expo 67 in Montreal. So in 1967, there were 2,000 projects that had been carried out, a long list. For example, National Tours Anne of Green Gables, the Feu Follet, Don Messer, the Palais National. There was the New York Philharmonic Orchestra, Gordon Lightfoot, Sylvia Tyson, the Cape Breton Miners Museum, Halifax Centennial Swimming Pool. These were centennial projects. And in high school, we formed a folklore group. We were the Fauvette, And with the profits from our presentations, we were able to go to Expo 67. What wonderful memories. And 2017, it begins now. And some steps have already been taken. There has been a committee of heritage created by the House of Commons. And they've heard witnesses to hear about themes. And the Artists Association is interested in arts for our artists. And in order to receive ideas from our artists, we asked the community what they thought, and the community said, well, we could recognize all the wonderful things that Acadian women are doing. For example, quilts, and different types of art, painting, monologues, storytellers, an exchange between Francophone artists across Canada. And we could set up an exhibit that would tour Acadian communities in the province during the tourist season of 2017. And the launch could take place in Grandpay in the member of the Acadians, men and women, July the 1st, 2017, Canada Day. And we could have also a musical show with artists from across Canada, music, dance, visual arts, with blue headlining. And we're looking at projects in the schools for Nova Scotia, small celebrations in the communities based around food and our culture. But we also want to participate. We want to be involved in the 150th anniversary of our Canada. So we're getting now to the final part of recommendations. We only have 2 recommendations to make. First of all, the celebrations should inspire, encourage, and promote and welcome artistic creations by artists in all sectors. They're ready and they're up to the task. We want to be at the provincial table for Nova Scotia artists. And secondly, we want to seize the opportunity to create a permanent place in Nova Scotia in order to commemorate the accomplishments of Acadian and Francophone artists from Nova Scotia, with the necessary financing for the construction, the administration, and permanent mentoring for an Acadian Francophone Museum of Arts. And we are calling on inspiration here for the first time in the history of Canada, in the history of Acadians and Nova Scotians. We could have and hear and consult the works of our artists. They would be preserved for history. And we're talking here about Canadian art. The time has come. 2017 begins now. And the Artists Association is ready. I would like to thank you once again for the invitation. It was a great pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Madame Belliveau, j'ai peut-être une petite question.
I have a question. I have a question for you. Hope it's not too difficult. What are the main issues for Acadian artists? You mean within 2017 celebrations? There are no major issues. Each sector has its own activities. We have a provincial association, and it is through that association that you should look to find inspiration among the youth.